pandemic trapped a bunch of aging role-playing gamers in their homes, forcing them to crawl out of their pen and paper comfort zone and into the online world of virtual tabletops and video calls. To join them as they raise the curtain to share their stories, insights, and love of all things geek. So grab your longsword and your +1 bottle of Viagra and get ready for another episode of Advanced Age Role-Playing Gamers Podcast. That's a lot of syllables for one sentence.
Hello and welcome to the Advanced Age Role-Playing Gamers Podcast with another installment of Meet the Cast. We want you to get to know our cast a little better, and what better way than to share some of their history with gaming and how it has played a role in their lives. So without further ado, let's meet our cast member, Malcolm.
Yay!
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us.
You just introduced him.
Yeah, you just
about to
introduced me.
say,
Hello, I'm Malcolm.
you got a little ahead of the
And
script
now I'm
there,
a member of the
pal.
cast.
I could have mispronounced it, but
It's Malcolm. Malcolm is correct.
You have to double emphasize that second L.
Yes.
Can you say the Sanskrit?
So, anyway, those of you that listen to the audio-only version of this may recognize Malcolm's voice from our first couple of Aliens episodes, when we ran Destroyer of Worlds. If you only know about the YouTube, then maybe you should check out the podcast and catch up on those Alien episodes.
If you're watching the videos, you see how he single-handedly raises the charisma of the entire party.
Totally. And you know, while I'm being stupid,
Except when I
here,
had
why
my
don't I
beard.
be official and the rest of the nut jobs here? Why don't you go around and introduce yourselves?
I'm Chris, and I'm playing the part of Cheer.
I'm Sean,
sorry.
and I'm also playing the part of Tyr.
And I'm Matt, co-host.
Playing the
being
part
Matt.
of Tony.
Tonight I will be Blanco Phantasma. No.
Who, since he's dead, will be strangely silent.
Spoilers.
Fuck.
Anyway, so before we get started, I think I speak for everybody that we're so happy to have Malcolm back with us. You know, when we started this thing, he was here, and you know, while we had a lot of fun without him, it was pretty awesome this first few times getting to do this with him, and just gaming with Malcolm in general is always fun, and we always look forward to it. So, since I'm already talking, I might as well and go ahead and ask the first question. So Malcolm, why don't you tell us when and what system you started playing when you first started role playing?
Okay. That would be in 1983. We had just moved from Texas to Washington, D.C. area. And my mother wanted to get me out of the way because we were moving in and my brothers had already taken off. And I was just sitting around, and she had managed to wrangle my little brother somewhere. But she's like, go. Why don't you go hang out with a neighbor? Because we just met our neighbors. She goes, go hang out with, their son, Eric. You guys can, find something to do. He's close to your age. He was not, but my mom was just like generalizing. Anyway, so I went over to my friend, my neighbor's Eric's house, and he introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons. I think it was just the basic Dungeons and Dragons. I'm almost certain it was. And I think his was in the blue box. So his was like early, the really early 71. Or something. And that was an amazing situation as far as I'm concerned. I had never played a role-playing game and just found it completely fascinating. My first character, whose last name I do not remember, but his first name was Damascus because I thought that sounded pretty exotic.
Damascus Steel?
And he was a dwarf, which I think might have been the class too.
So
I
Damascus
don't
Iron.
recall.
Yeah.
Yeah, Damascus Iron. Yes, that's fine.
Okay, that'll work too.
And I had, and he ran me through, it might have been, it might have been B1 or B2. I can't remember which one. I think it was a dungeon of his own making. And it was absolutely amazing. I was fascinated by the idea that you could build a story and then have someone play it out. And there was this sort of way it randomly happened it wasn't, it was kind of like, we're playing make-believe, but there were things we couldn't control because it was just randomized dice, and we could figure out exactly how strong or how short or how fast or how quick or how, good my particular made-up character was. And I thought it was absolutely amazing. And we were living on base at the time, and that started a whole entire love of it. And then, as Eric moved away, and other kids moved in, the D&D group that we had sort of shifted and changed. And also, from there, it grew up for other different games that came about over the years, and new players, and new systems, and new characters. And I think, that was the path that started this slight obsession that I have.
Slight.
Because that's what my therapist said.
Yeah.
Well, so you told us a little bit about your first character. So have you what are some of your favorite characters that you've played? And why are some of them so memorable? Now, I know I caveat this because I'm really curious, because most of the time I've known you've been the GM. And so I'm kind of wondering, flipping that around, when you've had a chance to play.
It's kind of odd, because usually most of my favorite times are when I'm GMing and an NPC I get to play. But in playing games, there are a number of keynote characters that stand out flat out that I just remember. I think the obvious one to me was one of the characters I played for a long time in a D&D game when I first met you guys, and that would be Ariel of Avonlea.
Oh,
who was his cleric. And that pretty much set the whole entire tone for a lot of my playing, as far as knowing, putting emotional depth, as far as power, and as far as what else you can do. I really love that character as far as playing it. It was a great character. It was a very dynamic one, who teetered and constantly, tested the borders of what was truly moral and what was good and what was righteous. Tested against what was free and what was liberty, kind of thing. So, sort of playing with all of that. And, we had some pretty, our GM was pretty strict, but we did pretty good and had a lot of fun with that game. And that was a great character. I guess another one would be, it was only for a short time, was the Dr. Bones in a Cyberpunk campaign. I just loved his mullet. which was the fashion at the time, apparently.
But if I can interject there, so was that the one where you'd always check the patient's credit before he? Oh
yeah, that was Bones. Yeah, the Cyberpunk. He always you never did surgery. It's no, I think I can only do a little bit here.
Yeah.
Or basically, I would just tell my goons to push him out of the ambulance.
Your goons?
Well, they were actually okay. I'm sorry, I rephrase that. My nurses.
Cyberpunk,
my PAs and nurses were nope. They're goons. I mean, they were armed and they were armored, but they could do minor surgery too, at least assist. So yeah, I completely respect the.
I remember that. That was pretty.
I think after that, then there was, of course, Catalyst, who was a mutant in the Marvel superhero game. Self-righteous prick to a great degree, but I thought it was a lot of fun to just play someone who skirted the whole entire edge of villainy while trying to be a hero. At least he wanted to look like a hero on the outside, no thanks to Black Archer, who was horrible. That was the worst character ever. Oh my gosh, I still talk about that, but we'll get into
Was
James
that
later.
the healing arrows?
Yes, the healing arrows. We'd fire healing arrows. I was like, that's
I'll
all
shoot
wrong.
it with my healing arrows.
I was like, I have the ability to cause their bodies to basically heal themselves by just waving my hands over them without shooting them with arrows. Anyway.
But where's the fun?
There was the fun. Yeah. The disintegration arrows to save people was another thing he did.
Why do I keep the disintegration arrows right next to the healing arrows? Damn it.
Classic James.
It's classic, yeah. But, and I, trying to think, it's kind of really hard because I often get my NPCs mixed up with the characters I've played, but
well, that's okay. In fact, I was going to think for since you've done so much GMing, I was actually wondering, so you've got your favorite PCs. What are some? I mean, you've done 1 million characters, right?
I've done a million characters, so it's kind of really hard.
Right.
It's kind of really hard to say. I mean, it's like...
you really have played 1 million people, so you've got to pick from that haystack, right?
I mean, there's a lot in that haystack, and it's hard. I mean, I can't even remember all their names. That's the thing. I mean, like I remember some like Corporal Nichols was this one pivotal character on a Mobile Suit game until she sacrificed herself to save to save the group. But it was like loved playing that character up to up to her end, and even after she was dead, it was a really great legacy character left behind. There was well, of course. In the Supers game, there were a ton of people I loved to play. I loved Gold Sovereign, who was the nemesis of Emerald Fury.
Yes.
I mean, the idea of this this British royal running around in a super armor shaped like this Golden King who would have his henchmen, the beef eaters, come and beat up on him. It was pretty awesome.
That was awesome.
Dr. Fu Manchu for the same game.
Oh.
Who was a very strong traditionalist in how we did things. He used to do things this way. You arrive in your Zeppelin and you'd trap the heroes. You never watch them die because that was just rude. If they escaped, it's part of the profession. It's a part of what we do.
It's tradition.
But it's tradition. And there's a number of villains that I did love doing. But there's just so many. I mean, no, that was actually the character I played. Was a Star Trek character, Hawkins. She was crazy. Anyway, that was a different game. There's quite. I mean, it's just a lot of games that I'm playing characters I played. But those first three other ones that really stick out as far as characters that I played and that I remember as far as being a player. I mean, there are characters I'm playing now that I really enjoy, and maybe they'll get to that point, but we'll see. I'm really enjoying this one thief in this other game right now. But she's ended up being the mother hen in this whole entire party, but that's a different thing. Yeah, anyway, it's different.
That's your role as a DM a lot, too.
Yeah, so I think I just sort of fell into that. Wasn't my plan, but it's all working out. But yeah.
So, like the rest of us, you started playing with when you're a teenager. Now that you're slightly older. What keeps you playing role playing games after all these years? Why is this hobby so important to you?
There's a number of reasons, I guess, but I think it is probably at first it would be the first reason that got me into the game. It is the story building. It is the building an epic story, or not so epic story, but a story nonetheless, with your friends. That is, even in the most mundane worlds we've played in, larger than life in the end, because you guys you come together to make this story. Either as a player, as a GM, or as both, We've always, you always grow up with stories like, Gilgamesh and Beowulf and the saga of King Hroth, Croaky or something like that, These are all epic hero stories that have ups and downs, that a hero grows and goes through these adventures, but you're always sort of watching, trying to imagine what they're like, and never putting yourself in it. And role-playing lets you put yourself in that adventure. But that same thing, it also lets you just sort of let go. It is an escapism to a certain degree. That I'm, for a bit, living in a world that has even, maybe not even the same connections to the way this world actually folds out. That does affect my role playing and my world building, is because I don't tend to be like, I was known for a long while as a GM who didn't kill players, which I regretted later. But
yes, Sean.
No.
But the thing is,
we spoke of him earlier.
But the thing is, it was one of those things that we just, it was an epic story that you really truly didn't want to end. So sometimes I carried it on longer than it should and gave a lot of graces when I probably should have just punished people. But anyway, that aside, it is a story building. It is the building of an epic story collectively. It is that thing that even in the most primitive parts of humanity that we start off telling tales and stories around a fire, and that it would be spread between one generation to the next, or built in that story as far as those collectively, be it our discussion of what happened on the hunt and how everyone saw it different, or how we gathered things from the field and saw that bird that came landing in the middle of the village. All those things, even way back then into the future, are about us building stories together that are epic and amazing. And role-playing lets you do that. It also creates a bit of unpredictability by having like dice or cards or whatever it is that randomizes some of the results, but still it's a story that you're building together. So that's why.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we are those cavemen the cavemen that drew dicks on the cave walls.
Well, yeah, we are them. Yes. Yeah, we're still those guys though.
So
This is why I shut off the option to draw things on my electronic tabletops. No, you just no, because you end up with a lot more dicks than you.
So many dicks.
So many dicks.
You speak of dicks like it's a bad thing.
Though, all my players always can say every time I draw any map, it's like, "Is that a dick?" I'm like, "It's a hallway with 2 rooms." So
Obviously an anus.
they're antechambers.
What's the penis version of pareidolia?
Yeah, they'll find it. Yeah, so it's like it's to be expected. But I'm sorry, go on.
Now, I was going to say, do you have a favorite game system or a couple systems? Has it changed over time?
Yes and yes and yes. I do have a favorite game system, and that would be GURPS, Generic Role-Playing System by Steve Jackson. Only because it has been the most pliable as far as being able to create for my world building what I need as far as tools. The thing is, it's a very crunchy system, meaning there are a lot of rules for everything you might possibly need, but all that information and data is right there. It's very detailed, which is good as far as certain building aspects, but as far as resolution, sometimes that can be bogged down. But I do love it. I love this. I've run everything from Elizabethan space games to Bronze Age fantasy games to near future mech games, to anything, cyberpunk, to, whatever I have been able to run in that system. And I've really enjoyed it. The only thing I really haven't run in it and done really well is Supers, but I found another system for that and I'm happy to find something else for that. It's just a bit too realistic. But I was for a long time a staunch believer that was like the one system for everything. But I'd start off playing D&D, and then my mother was like one of those, that's a Satan's game, so that means I don't play D&D at her house or when she knows it. So I immediately switched over to I'll get a space game, which as far as my mom was concerned, that's not devil worship, it's fine. So we played Traveler.
Space Devils.
Space Devils. Yeah, literally, it was like whatever, And so I did Traveler, and then, I did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then that turned into, this is the Palladium system with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then it was Heroes Unlimited in Palladium, and then it became Robotech in Palladium, and then went on from there. And then I eventually stumbled into GURPS. And that was the same time we were doing the Masquerade as well, and Cyberpunk was back in there somewhere. And so it was a whole lot of games that were rolling out, I guess, in this early...
too.
Yeah, MERPS. Oh my gosh, Iron Crown. Anyway, but a lot of great games, and I think it's after I moved here, and I found out no one moved here in Tennessee. No one knows how to play. No one was playing GURPS. I think it was like 5 guys, and I found them, but everybody else was not playing GURPS. And you had actually suggested, Nathan, that I try out 5th edition D&D, and I was like, I had a taste of 3.5 and didn't care for it. Had a taste of 4, and I was like, I really hate that. And I was like, I don't even do it. It's like, just try it. And I tried it out, and then I went to a couple of Interleague sessions to try and get familiar with the rules with their players, and really liked the 5th edition. It did remind me, it had some trappings from, 2nd edition, and then it had it literally did a good job of taking a lot of parts from each of the versions beforehand, be it 3.5, 3, 4, and building a decent system that was very approachable. And I remember opening the player's handbook and being utterly amazed when I saw, for the first time, in any basic starting player book, I saw someone who looked like me in that book. I can't tell you how amazing it was to see that for humans, the example was a black woman. For fighters, it was a black man. And I was just utterly floored by that. There are people of color throughout the whole entire book and in the supplement books thereafter. And I was just amazed that it was like, it made it much more approachable. It made people say, yeah, you belong in this universe too. You belong in this amazing, fantastic world. And I think when people are talking about this upsurge of, role-playing and so forth, we have to give props where they are. I mean, Wizards of the Coast did an excellent job of making a very approachable system as far as its mechanics and how it works, and making the product look like letting the players see themselves in these books. They've even gone further with that in other books thereafter, but that was really great to see. And it was a very easy system to learn. I couldn't imagine trying to teach people about THAC0. I just was like, oh God, that'd be horrible. But I know it, but it's like teaching new players that would be such impossible now. But it was a very approachable system. And then almost like, I think it was like within 3 years of its, of it being out, all the 3 books were out and everything else. Then you have Critical Role hit the waves. And I'll have to be honest, that is a team of professionals, flat out. So
just like us.
I was just like us. Yeah.
Goddamn right. Goddamn right. Yeah.
A team of great voice actors who worked together.
They're very good. They're
a team of good friends, and who had a great support starting off, and it continued to grow. Yeah, we had a great budget. Yes. And the thing is, what happens is you have people watching something that's happening that I never thought would happen in my lifetime. People are sitting there watching hours of people play D&D. That's the kind of thing my dad would stumble in at 4 a.m, like, where the hell are you guys doing in my basement kind of thing. But he's still mystified by that. He just like, I don't understand this. Anyway, but we were watching it. People were seeing that it was something that they felt was, not only was the rules approachable, but now they saw how to play it. And it can be approachable. No one can play a game like that. Those people are professionals. Do not be dissuaded to play if your game does not look like that. It won't. Like I said, they have a lot of budget and a lot of professional. Anyway.
Maybe yours, Malcolm. Not mine. Maybe yours.
But
all top shelf here, right?
yeah, all top shelf. As long as it's just in the bottles. Anyway, but
very low shelf.
Wait, call it rail play. What? But the thing is, it was a very approachable game. You had a very charismatic group of people showing you how to play, and so people got really excited about it. And then you have a pandemic where people are stuck at home. People have just started getting out, getting to meet each other, getting together for groups, all that stuff, and then suddenly they can't, but they want to play this game, and there's a platform to play it on. And so virtual tabletop becomes a big thing, And also with that, because people are watching, Critical Role and other groups on YouTube, like ours, they're also getting other contents from other games, as far as other games are being promoted by various players and trying out, So then it begins to expand as far as what we have to offer. And about that, other period that was happening before the pandemic, I came to the realization that there are certain games you use for certain things. Well, I love GURPS for just about everything. I had to take a step back and realize that, what? For really great high fantasy feel, nothing beats D&D. I really like it for that, and I'm really going to use it for that, For my high action adventure cliffhanger stuff, Savage Worlds was the to-go. You cannot beat that. Savage Worlds, though, is very versatile.
Yeah.
And it's quickly becoming one of my favorite game systems for other games as well. And then it was a matter of just looking and seeing. And there's some games like, Knives of Dark, other things that cater to particular sort of like genres and sort of like game building. Some don't require any game building, no world building at all, and you just sort of jump into it. Others require a bit more complex or have very complex worlds that are very toned and have a certain theme to them. But they all are good in their own way, as long as the players and the GMs come together. That's what they want from that game. And so it's varied. So right now I'm doing Savage Worlds. I'm actually running, it's a variant off the Mind the Gravity universe. This is the crew of the Halcyon, and they're called The Flight of the Halcyon is called that game, and it's in Savage Worlds. It's a space game.
I have a little follow-on question. You mentioned world building a few times, and like you and I are such different DMs. Where like me, I really just build an outline and just kind of wing it from there, to sometimes great, sometimes less than great effect. But you really, and Matt too, since he's sitting here too, you both really spend a lot of time building the worlds up.
I can hear it reverberating in your speakers, Kupo.
We're interviewing Malcolm, Tony.
So let's take a second and welcome Tiny Tony to our gangbang of an interview with Malcolm.
Oh my God.
That's what my wife
we're
also calls
just
it.
circling
Yeah.
around.
But so I was just saying that. So let me back up and start over again.
Well, before you do, I got to get
From
one
the
in.
beginning.
Oh, hold on,
So
wait.
Kupo,
Three,
we're
two-
running a train of questions.
Okay.
Yeah, it's always Sean.
That was just for you.
Yeah,
That was
you
for
should
you,
have held on to that, Matt. That the moment had passed.
That's what she
Matt,
said.
it's always bad timing.
Anyway.
by the way.
So I'm gonna roll back and start over my question again. So when we talk about the types of role playing games you like, you mentioned world building a lot, and you and I are such different DMs. Like I tend to build like an outline and kind of wing it a lot to great effect or less. But you, like every game I play with you really have these notebooks of details on all the NPCs, the weather, the types of food everybody eats, all the meals that are presented, and the histories going back hundreds or maybe thousands of years of these territories, and it just amazes me. Like I'm completely incapable of that kind of level of detail, and I'm thoroughly impressed by what you're. By the way you do that. So, well, the fact that you do that is, but what is your approach to world building?
And Malcolm, as a follow-on, how long should a DM describe what dinner is during a normal session?
Okay. When I answer the second question first?
Okay.
How long do you describe what a dinner is? It depends if you have food available or not.
Also,
Like,
is it a formal dinner? Is it a fast food?
I think it's like is the dinner a character or an event itself? Like, for instance, when I went through describing like the dinner of a certain king or prince getting, coronation, and there's a difference between the high table and the other table of the players. Well, some of the players. I think some of you were nobles, so you got to eat the good table. Anyway, I went to all the detail as far as that food because it was the amount of excess that had to be explained. Like the fact that there was, roast peacock that was stuffed with sparrows that were, those kind of things need to be described so you realize the amount of opulence that's required in that situation and not. But it's also the very same thing as describing like, the food printer shoots out a sort of a grayish, semi-translucent goop, that's your nutrient. I mean, even describing that tells them like exactly what it looks like, how much care and love is in that actual squirting or discharging, I guess.
Squirting.
Squirting is probably the right word.
of their NutriPaste, it's,
That's
so,
what you
Meal
call it
ejaculate,
now?
we call it on the upper decks.
so it can be as
Yes.
long or as short as that character. I think it's if you make the meal a character. As far as how do I start my world building?
Yeah.
It usually starts with an idea. Like, for instance, and the game I'm running now.
See,
is
that's
like,
the main difference between Nathan and Jay. See, you have an idea. And what are you talking about?
Don't pull back the curtain.
Don't pull back the curtain.
No ideas.
so it's
Yeah.
it's like it's an idea or a concept. It's almost like a pitch for a show. That's because I almost see all my games as being like if they were shows. And how would I build a writer's Bible for them? So a writer can come up with an adventure for it, and like we don't allow that, but we allow this. Same thing. And that's kind of been my sort of mantra. Like every session is somewhat an episode in a way. The characters are the main characters, and then there's special guests, and there's co-stars, and then there's a lot of just extras. As far as how I build it, but a story comes with a concept. Like, for instance, this story was what happens when you have a bunch of people at the end of their work contract, and they're given the possibility of taking this job that might be illegal, but if they do it, It could make them rich. If it goes bad, they can't go back to where they've been working and contracted for years. So that's how it starts off. And then you give them this terrible workplace and you chop them up in space and then set them on this adventure where they find this ship that could change their lives or doom them. And they're not really sure. And they're 5 sessions in and they still don't know. But they're making the best of it, you know. And then, you know, you have to, where's the ship come from? Who is their employer? What kind of government does that employee work in? Does that come? And you start just building out from there. And then, you know, a lot of things were just like, you know, what's common for this genre? We need to have a big bad uniform, bad guys, and this guy's, this space game is a lot more sort of lackadaisical as far as its overall feel. It's not the harsh, it's more comedic, I guess, or somewhat comedic in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add to that? Because, and in all seriousness, do you find, how do you draw the line? Because one thing that I find with any great campaign is knowing when
Sean dies.
Sean dies. No,
I have been waiting for that. Just waiting.
So has our listeners. But besides that, no. But in all seriousness, you can get into so much world building that you kind of lose focus of the story.
Like when to stop.
Yeah. So how do you balance that? Because as all of us here are writers, and you can get lost in the sandbox and forget the story. So how do you balance that?
I'll be perfectly honest. There's a lot of times I do get lost. And it's a matter of like, how much because it's always the question of trying to figure out when I'm working on something is like, how much when will I need this? Will this be of value to the players in the story? Will they ever really encounter this? Is it a great, and it's like, it's sometimes it's difficult to make that happen because you're thinking like, well, how do I get this, how do I make certain it's not? I mean, the characters could take a left and suddenly be here. But it's hard. I mean, for me, it's hard because I tend to do too much always. But finding out and determining what the value of that is to the particular story, to the characters that are currently going to be involved or how you think they're going to be involved. And and do you have enough to at least get you to the first step? Because some things you only need to describe only so far, and you may be able to stall enough to then fill all the blanks in later.
So,
but
with that, I'm sorry for interrupting, but like there are times where we've been on great campaigns with Matt and Nathan, and they planned a tributary, and they were like, "Oh, I can't wait to smash their brains in," and then Sean will say something like, "Let's just go down the alley," and then like, what? And then, like, and so we'll bypass a whole story arc that.
Yes.
So my question.
You're talking about a recent game, aren't you? Yes.
So my question is, did you ever like plan something to such a detail, and you're like, "Oh, this is all gonna be wasted," and then at the last second, they brought it back around, and you're like, "Oh, good, I get to,"
So here's what I did. I had planned out and drawn this great dungeon they were going to go through at the start of the campaign. I think they were like maybe 3rd level in this one game, and they're headed towards there, and they leave. And I'm like, I have all this stuff. So I just put it away, and then what I do is I make certain those motherfuckers end up back there again. Or that dungeon ends up being the dungeon they go into later. Or that alley begins, certain things will, of course, have a certain feel and can't be switched around like that. But that is one of the terrifying things I go through is like all the questions players have asked you about a world is my horrible thing. It's like, well, is there a mage college? And it's like, okay, got to make up a mage college. Is there an assassin guild? Got to make up Assassin's Guild. Got to make up a Thieves Guild. Got to figure out what is the currency. These are kind of stupid things, crazy things that players often ask.
Hey, Chris, you taking notes?
I make this build.
Yeah.
Okay, we're writing all this shit down.
That I make up.
Like they want an Assassin's Guild, but none of you qualified the entrance exam. So
Yeah,
not sure about that.
Yeah, it's like if there is, because some people want to build backgrounds based on what they know, other people don't really need to, and sometimes you don't really have to worry about that. But I am a person who overbuilds a lot. But finding the line is just a matter of where do you think it's also affected by your tone of your game. this space game I'm running right now is rather unique for me because all I've done is I haven't built any story. I've just built a large framework to go around it. And then I've had this book of like 100 space adventures for like 20 years. And I'm like, I never use them. I'll just let them roll 2 percentile dice, and there's 100 of them. And whatever they roll will be the next adventure we run. I'll just make it up from based on that. No other content based on that. Just try and do it. Which has been a challenge for me, but also a way to try and change how I run a game so I don't overbuild. So I'm building only for that adventure as soon as they roll it. Like this one, they just rolled, and it was like, okay, 94. I have a basic description of the adventure, and I have to build off of that. Before, I mean, like in other games I've run, like there's a very cognitive story as far as where they're supposed to go. They are, I guess it was the urban fantasy game where they were in Baltimore and they were trying to stop an ancient vampire from coming back. They didn't realize it until much in the middle of the story, a vampire from coming back to the city. Of course, there was also the dilemma that the vampire's motives are not necessarily unjustified, but they are 2-bit brutal. So it was kind of weird. So it was a thing. Don't go in that.
And Baltimore, the vampire got robbed.
So there, and that was a whole entire campaign that was actually based on, oddly enough, racial justice at the time, and it was dealing with, the slave trade and slavery when this happened, and they're in the modern age dealing with the repercussions of a vampire from that period coming back. Anyway, in a very racially tense city at that time. So that was, that scope of that universe required me to know a lot about Baltimore, I guess, or areas around it, and to look into some Maryland and Virginia folklore, as well as things they'd be familiar with as far as the players.
Goat man.
Goat man. That's what I was about to say. Goat man.
Goat man. And as well as, taking a lot of liberties and fun. And and that campaign was, the world building was based on that. I did take a lot from Dresden Files because I love that game, but I wasn't ready to jump into a new system, so whatever.
I think everybody borrows.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did a really good Baltimore in that game, so I really like that too.
Good.
But a lot of the but as far as that, you have to, and I think the whole entire game sort of like background Bible that came up actually from it was like some convention I went and found like a Star Trek Writer's Bible for TNG. And I saw that and was like, They have some very basic guidelines as far as this is how far things will go. This is what the ship basically looks like. It was all very pretty, there were some places were very detailed, other places were just sort of like, we're sort of doing this with this technology or this kind of, or don't make the plot go out of here. And that was kind of nice. And so it helped me think about how I was going to build games and structure them. Not that I didn't do it before that. It just helped me. And I think a lot of times, I think a lot of GMs get obsessed with world building and they often get intimidated by it as well. And in truth, there are literally thousands of different ways to generate and create stuff. Now, there's so many resources out there, it's ridiculous. For me, I think it's like, in the 90s, there wasn't that much out there. You really did. There was only, if you weren't running a fantasy D&D game, you didn't have very many resources to really pull on.
You're right.
It was just like, if I wasn't running Dungeons and Dragons or running some fantasy game that I could pull Dungeons and Dragons stuff from, you were pretty screwed. You had to make up a lot of stuff, figure it out. Even like when I played Traveller, it had a number of books out, but a lot of its whole base was, here's a map of 1,000 worlds with some basic stats. You make them up. You flesh it out. So, you learned how to world build just from that kind of thing, And also because players often ask questions that the people who even did those games weren't asking or didn't think it would be necessary to even bring up, It's kind of funny, like, Heroes Unlimited wasn't concerned about exactly certain things as far as who was responsible for taking care of these villains after you put them away. There's like, we're just making the villains, making the heroes. And that was it. It was like, until you got another, it took them a while to build that out, but you had to do it in the meantime. And
This Bar from Champions put him in Stronghold.
Well,
Yep.
that's the thing is you end up just borrowing and choosing and so forth. I think they eventually did come out with something, but I can't remember what it was because I think it moved on by then as far as it was limited, which was, I love the game that we played. I wasn't a super big, huge fan of the system anymore. I think it's best. I think that was a game that I really loved. Its fantasy was spot on. Its fantasy was good.
I think some of that too is the difference between like there seems to be very different for D&D and probably other games too. There's kind of the folks who play modules, right? So like you buy a module,
Right.
you create a party, you kind of play the module, and it's a self-contained experience, right?
Yeah.
It's not really world building, right? But I don't know about you, but I think if I understand, like most of our experiences have been mostly homebrew or taking pieces from modules and putting them in to a larger context. And so it's a very different style of play. If you're just playing sort of the modules, you don't have to worry about that. There's no greater world on the outside that you have to define. It's just, let's just go through here. Let's do this. And it sets those boundaries for you. Yeah.
And I think that came from the fact that we all grew up as D&D was developing. Because remember, modules came out first, and then later on, we got the world of Greyhawk. Then we had more modules, and then we later on got Forgotten Realms as a campaign world. And these are, so we were already taking these modules and having to fit them into a world that we were making. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's the timing as far as we had to do a lot of homebrew and take these modules, integrate them into our world because we suspect that after this module, they're going to go somewhere else. So we got to have somewhere else to go. I'm like, well, what are you even saying? This cave is right next to this swamp, swamp temple. So you end up having to make these maps and so forth. And then, eventually TSR at the time did it. And then, later on, which is the Coast. But it's just kind of like, I think that's why a lot of my world building came from, I think myself, is because even though, like, for instance, Traveler has this whole entire world built up as far as that, but it needs you to fill in the details of that individual planet a lot of times. So that's became a practice of, I'm going to have to build this world, Can
you imagine, Malcolm, if you had the resources that 90 PGCC and all that?
I can't even imagine.
I can't even imagine how
what worlds we would have
dead. We would have never left our houses. We'd be dead.
I don't think we would have left our houses. And
we would have been dead.
Because it's just like, you mean
we'd never be more alive because we would have never been married and had children.
We'd have money, but we wouldn't have jobs.
Think of the Mountain Dew that we would have drunk by now.
Guys, I got to get to work as a janitor. Excuse me, I have to leave.
Hey, that is a good job.
It is. I'm not shitting on it. I'd rather be a trash bin, though.
Yeah,
but literally, we'd all have jobs sitting around when we could play. I have to go. I've got a game. Wait,
guys, I'll see you at 3 a.m.
No, see, we had Malcolm as the writer, Kubo as the videographer. We just turned these things into movies. That's the model.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Lord of the Dingbats. That's what it is.
I make an awesome key grip, is all I'm saying.
Key grip you are, sir.
On the flip side,
you're the best boy.
What's the shortest?
Or of a gaffer.
What?
Best boy. What is the absolute shortest campaign where you did all this world building and somebody pulled a pitfall?
Tony, why are you reaching this? You're trying to piss him off.
Somebody did a pitfall and went the other way and solved you were done in a half hour because Sean was playing. He was like, "Fuck this! I killed the guy."
Why is it always me? There's a theme here. It's my fault.
Yes,
that's not true.
It's
Sean's fault.
I can't say that scenario has actually happened yet. Not that it won't. I have worked on campaigns. I mean, literally, I remember building a campaign, doing a website for them to review information and things about the characters and the ports and everything else. And they quit. They decided, oh, we're done. I'm like, wait. You asked me to run a campaign. And like, yeah, we did for 4 weeks. And I'm like, no, I don't do 4 weeks. I won't be doing Because, like, that's called a one shot for me because I'm terrible at one shots and have no time management capability. So it's going to take 4 weeks. But I'm like, yeah, that was like when I decided this group does not get campaigns from me anymore. And then I decided I don't need to be a part of this group anymore. But that's what it was. But it was just like, have characters completely sabotage entire situations? Yes. And it's fine. It's an expected danger. I mean, like, literally, I have this one thing where I thought, they're surely going to support this NPC and go help him rescue these, kidnapped children. Nope, we're off.
This group certainly is not among that.
I was like, oh, okay.
So, Malcolm, just a second. To our viewers, when you rewind this, while Malcolm's talking about this, just look at Nathan and Matt's face the whole time he's talking. Because I'm watching, because I know I totally fucked Matt once just like this by making a decision as the leader of the group. But really, you should go. There's no reason for the group to go there.
Season down the trash.
Because Matt kept telling you guys really want to do this. Why? And we're all like, none of us want to do it. We're leaving. And he's just looked at us like, well, we just left the planet.
It's very hard to, it's sometimes hard to gauge their motivations, and it will change at times. And you sort of have to, it's difficult.
This is why I like not planning, because then I'm never disappointed.
Well, the thing is, I love world building. Adventure building is a nightmare.
Yeah.
But in theory, it's supposed, the way it works is that if you have a good enough framework or good enough sort of like flexible mind to deal with certain things, like, they killed the one NPC that was important to him. You got to just, take your, literally, if you need to, just say, okay, guys, I'm going to take a break and I'll get back to you. And just literally figure out some way to land there behind, right in front of the same NPC with their brand new skin and just send them again.
Yeah, in like this game, the Twilight 2000 game, which we're almost done editing, I was really thinking that at one point that they would never actually get to this college place I'd created. I thought they're going in a completely wrong direction. I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll have to find something else for them to do. And ended up finding a way to kind of bring them back around.
And it's like, it's not always...
The answer was guns. Lots of guns.
Yes. Lots of guns.
And I'll be truthful. You don't always want to necessarily bring them back to that spot that you've made always.
Yeah.
Sometimes, players find a path that you realize that, it will be more satisfying if they went on the path they want to go on.
Yeah.
If they like say, you know what, they just said, we're not going to go for you're not going to go for the college. It's way too difficult. It's too dangerous and not worth the cost. But we saw these ships off the coast. You just try and let them go with that and build off of that and transfer a few things and resources if you need to and to let it flow. I mean, because there's a lot of times adventures will go off the rails, players will go in different directions, and sometimes a lot of times I'll be more than they know, the players will come up with the adventures that I'm going to run.
Yeah.
Because they'll have this paranoid tirade, like, oh my God, I think he's actually the enemy. He's probably hiding in that base in there. And I was like, oh, that's better than what I had. They're hiding in an enemy.
I love it when the players give you ideas.
And then they go like, when they finally go, aha, we were right all along. Like, yes, you are. Well done.
Yeah, I think I've definitely learned is sometimes shut the hell up because you're feeding the fire just by,
And, a lot of it too is sometimes you have to let the players kind of lead you to where they want to go, and really the kind of game that they want to play. Because if you kind of like really, if you kind of, you have to remember it's their story.
It's their story.
You're facilitating their story.
Well, I'm of the opinion it's their story too.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
I believe.
I'm with you.
I'll be perfectly honest. I'll be perfectly honest. I'll be like, for instance, I'm at this point in my life where like
now we fight.
I don't take like listen. Like I'll screen players. Like I don't want this person in my game. They'll never have to know I'm running a game.
Oh God, this explains the last few years of my life.
You be quiet.
That's also why Malcolm moved to Tennessee.
Is that for all of us? Wait a minute.
Explains a lot.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, I know for a fact that I've been very lucky and very fortunate with the friends that I've had and made. But like, you know what? We all remember, and that's a person I like. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Should I not use his name? Bleep
I don't think
you should bleep it.
I think it's Matt. Was it Matt? Mike?
Don't matter. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There are certain players that I was like, No, they
was
See the
were
guy
very,
that
they were.
punched through the wall or broke his hand, or who's
I
that
think
guy?
so. Right, that might have been the same
Yeah,
guy.
something like that. I remember an incident
Yeah.
being told about that.
And I think
There's
it's
a
for me.
little
It's
asshole named Sean too. Oh my god.
Yeah, he was a fucking Marine. Just
Malcolm,
came in wearing his fucking Major Dad jacket all the time.
If I can interject, I'm really, Malcolm, I'm a little concerned about the thousands, hundreds, the dozens of fans that we have listening every week. I really don't want to disparage anybody.
okay, but
Thanks for bringing that up, Tony.
The odds are
I
more than
just-
7 million that you got him.
yeah. I just wanted to say that basically, you learn how your players play when you have some time to know them and so forth. As a matter of fact, I made a great, I told a lot of people it's good to sort of, meet your players before you invite them to your house. It's not like dating. It's completely different. This is going to be far more important.
It's going to be longer.
It may last longer.
In some cases. Let's amend that statement.
Sean, you don't have to bring in your own personal shortcomings. It's okay.
I am married. It only took 38.
But it's just it's just a matter of you have it's also the one thing of being honest about your expectations of what you're planning on running in the game and what they want as well, and then you guys coming together because what, it doesn't help if you have this whole entire theme or sort of idea about this game and none of your players are really on board for that, then it becomes a judgery.
Yeah.
You're dragging.
Yeah, I get it.
You want
I'm trying to
you
develop
both
one,
want to
yeah.
come together and say we both like this idea.
Yeah, I'm
So,
trying to develop something like that, like a game that's a little different for what we've done, but I want to make sure everybody in on it.
Yeah. So what I do now is I do a prospectus, just like a short, brief prospectus of what I want to do in the game. Like this will be and pulling examples. Like for instance, for my Bronze Age game, it was like this will be a sword and sorcery game set in like Greek Bronze Age. Close to like we'll think like very much think of not I didn't want to go Clash of Titans quite that much, but I was like, it's going to be mythological. Not quite Clash of the Titans, but definitely, your Troy as far as technology-wise, better acting.
Okay.
And plot.
So you had Clash of the Bisons. Okay.
And as far as an expectation, as far as, sword and sorcery, and that kind of, you sort of set an idea and like, what will be the tone? It will be serious, and there will be, no cinematic sort of, advantages. It'll be the magic will be harsh and costly. The strength, the strength of one's, armor. And so it's just sort of setting the tone of what I'm expecting from this game, which is completely different than this. You guys are basically a high level, mid level, good, decent level adventuring party with great renown and well respected. And suddenly you've been turned to kobolds by an evil necromancer. Now you have to go back into his cavern to kill him. And, you can and you literally have to try and convince the whole world that you're not really kobolds, but being a kobold has been really fun. But anyway, go. And therefore you let everyone sort of make their chaotic sort of crazy person from there. And, some will choose, it just sort of, and if you say it's going to have a comedic tone or it's going to have a very serious tone, or, you give examples like this is going to be this mech game is going to be a war journal. So think of, Band of Brothers and that kind of thing, and have that sort of ideal. And I would like you to sort of watch those and think that. Or I can say, it's going to be more of a sort of a lackadaisical. So think of, oh God, what was the name? Kelly's Heroes. That is a completely different tone than Band of Brothers.
But serious.
And the characters you get are going to vary, and the players have an idea of what they're getting into, and if they're into that, and if they want to play it. So it's also that, sort of giving them an idea of what you're doing. That's how you get these games that really are just out of the park, amazing.
So, you guys got questions you want to ask?
I do. So I guess
because Malcolm, that's great.
You've
You get a thumbs
inadvertently
up.
answered a lot of them. No, I think Nathan, do you mind? So, hey Malcolm, so what real world experiences have shaped how you run or play role playing games?
One, to be literature. Two would be,
There is no two.
I guess moving around as a kid, being a military brat, it was having to form new friend groups.
Every 3 to 4 years.
Every 3 to 4 years. And even when we moved on, we moved on post, and you see, we usually lived off base, but when we moved on post, it was even more evident that your friends would, that you made would disappear and new people would come there. And you'd sometimes, the one thing that sort of was like, for some weird reason that was universal that kids were into, was a role-playing game. Everyone would come to that table, and you would hope we'd be equal. It's not true, but it wasn't at the time, but it was still a balancer in some ways for a lot of us who weren't as popular or as athletic or as charismatic as other people around us. And in that space, we all were sort of together in our sort of awkward weirdness. And yet in the game, we were charismatic and we were strong and we were popular and we were, forthright, So I think that was the appeal that sort of built on that. And that's probably why. I mean, now it's more of just storytelling collectively with my friends. And as far as building connections, I mean, it's really kind of funny how close the role-playing group friends are, I mean, I've known you guys for, God, ridiculous amount of time.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Decade.
Yeah, let's go with
it's
decades.
Decades.
That sounds so good.
That makes me feel so much better.
Yeah, so much better. In the decades.
Right, let me hit the gym just a second.
All right. Well, I mean, I don't know, Nathan. Did we have any more, or did you want to move on to the final?
I was just gonna say that it's. I mean, you were in my wedding, So,
Yes.
so I mean, like all my friends, all the really close friends I have, like every single one of them is really through game. That's how I've formed my relationships. And I just to know you for decades, and Matt and Sean for decades. And some of these other guys are a little fresher on that, but I'm sure I'm going to know you guys for for a long time.
It's still decades for me.
I mean, even Nora asked Nathan if he wanted to role play. Didn't go quite as he expected.
Perfect.
But yeah, so it's so cool and amazing that we're able to kind of just come together and do this kind of funky hobby, and we kind of talked about how popular it's gotten in the past few years, especially with the pandemic and everything.
I think it also being that the pandemic also sort of does a lot to boil down what connections were important, and we suddenly found out where they were.
Yeah.
Which was kind of funny, is that a lot of players didn't realize that people were that important in their lives, but suddenly were. When they realized, oh, you know what, I don't talk to my cousin ever, but I talk to this person like almost every week. I mean, I really would have thought it was ridiculous that I'd be literally texting the players in my Thursday night game almost every day. We don't talk about the game. We just talk about everything else under the sun. And then we plan to go to movies together. Then we do dinners, all kinds of stuff. But it's like, it's really, we've been in each other's weddings. Well, not my wedding, but I've been in their weddings, And it's kind of really just, amazing how this sort of all, how it's all connected as far as the pandemic and other things. But, I mean, even years ago when I did that Gold Sparrow game, its whole purpose was to get together friends that I hadn't played with in a while together. So we could play, and just so, we, just to see. And I found out, we were still just as good friends as we were before. We still, love to irritate each other while playing a role-playing game, as well as enjoy each other's company. And I think that's one thing that that will continue to happen as far as with the system, hopefully. I've never been very good with the multiplayer computer games, but I guess I'm okay with this. Not so good running, but definitely different playing.
It feels natural to me now, especially after kind of doing this for almost a year. Like I'm seeing the faces of my friends and a Lego person,
Yeah, most of the faces.
Most of the faces.
It's a mysterious Lego fellow.
I have a picture book of him, so it's all good. I just put that
all
there.
Legos.
Like, hey, Chris.
And I would like to thank you for being such a devoted subscriber to my OnlyFans.
Yeah, it is. Gotta support your friends.
Yeah.
But
Could easily, yeah.
So, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the fellow nerds out there that might happen upon this little interview?
Sure. The one thing I just hope people take away with, well, if they're lucky enough, and hopefully they should look for it, and again, not necessarily not expect it, but definitely look for it, is a group that accepts you for who you are and how you are. And there is no compromising of yourself and completeness, and you don't need to do that. There is now a large number of people out there playing role-playing games. It will take some work to find a good party sometimes. And by a good party, I mean a good number of players who you would want to be your friends, who respect who you are, and all the aspects of, and you respect them. There is a lot of opportunity out there for that, to enjoy yourselves and not to necessarily, just be dragged into something. This is not one of those things that happen. But I think a lot of players are worried about if they're going to be, coming from an older player, speaking to a lot of younger players of that, is a lot of them worry about being sort of, I forgot the word. I guess there's a lot of gatekeepers in these games. And there's a lot of methods of the way we play this game, that we play our game, is very different than the game that you may play. And it may not necessarily be, this the way we play it, may not necessarily be the way you want to play it. And that's
Talking about peer
perfectly
pressure.
fine.
Talking about peer pressure.
Not just peer pressure, but it's also just like, people often find out sometimes like, oh, you can't play that type of character in this game.
Oh, I
it's
see what
like-
you're saying.
and it's
I
like-
got you.
It's not your character for one. And the thing is like, if the
I'll play
game
whatever I
they're
want to play.
if their game they're playing in and the players with them that they're playing with accept that character for what it is no one outside of anybody's business. They're there to enjoy themselves. And if they're accepted to that table, let them be accepted and play that character. And a lot of people worry and have this sort of thing of really editing themselves to be places and do stuff. And what we need to do, what I'm hoping to do in the future, is to make certain that role-playing is another one of those places that becomes safer, more accepting, and much more healthier even than it is now. And are we doing great? I don't know. I'm not taking a barometer. I mean, I've lucked out pretty much. But that's probably not true for everybody's experience. And that's what I found out when I went to a lot of, I've gone to conventions and everything and met some players and heard their horror stories and GM's horror stories. And it's like, we just have to present something that's going to be, ours is going to be pretty crass and crazy. And, it's the old guys, so that's what we do. But if that's your thing, please enjoy it.
Yeah.
But, there's always a place at a table, the right table. There'll be a place for you. It's not it's not all role playing. That's shunning you. It's some very small-minded people, and you can find a place. There'll be some guys.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said.
That's great.
Unless you're Sean, in which case, no.
No, that's fair. That's fair. 2 thumbs up. All right.
We've taken on Sean just to keep the rest of the world
Balance.
safe.
Near the balance.
The balance. It's the balance.
The balance.
It is the balance.
So Malcolm, I would say that one of my most memorable gaming experiences of all time was learning that I could fit into one of your mom's dresses.
I am so glad that she will never hear this podcast, but that was true. That was, yeah.
Malcolm
Yeah.
Chow, why is his dress not fit me? It's so stretched out.
I just put it back in the rack and hope she never wore it.
My God, the waist is so big now.
Well, that's really funny
Hey,
you should
I
say
was-
that, Malcolm,
I was
because
more
on the
svelte
line
back
right
then.
now, it's
Oh, God.
I say, Matthew, you owe me a new dress.
I mean, did she have a good sense of style? Because, I'm always looking for new outfits.
She has,
Matt ruined it.
literally,
It's over. It's
there was like, she had a dress for every day of the year if you were
Good
going
for
to
her.
church every day of the year.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. So we had to,
It'd be flame retardant.
well, it might be flame retarded. It would come in a matching hat and all kinds of things. So, and shoes. So,
She went all out. She went all out.
It
Right?
was a very flowy dress.
Yeah.
That's a whole style right there. Man.
And it was in the basement closet, so it wasn't.
Well,
it
that's
wasn't
where
a-
you.
it
That's
wasn't
where
a
you put
prime
on
ro-
your.
It wasn't in prime rotation, so it was downstairs in the basement with.
Yeah, that's where
This
you
is
put
why
on your
Matt never
mom's
came
dress.
over to my house.
That's where you did it. I just didn't have a sensibility, but yeah, that was God.
Yeah, thanks for the memory.
Decades.
The things that I mean, my parents would be like, the morning after, my dad would be like, "Why are you in the basement with all these white boys all night long?" And it's like, it was like, because he'd come down the stairs at like 4 or something and like look in his bathrobe and then just turn around and go back upstairs.
Oh, you're right. He did that.
Yeah, because
Because it was like,
yeah,
and it was like, it'd be like, I don't, and his questions would be like, I think he was kind of disappointed because we were doing nothing but sitting around a table with dice and stuff. And he was just like, they're not even listening to records or anything.
watching Akira.
Yeah. So it
They're
was
not
like,
even planning to overthrow the government.
yeah,
They're
it was
no
like
good.
nothing, But I mean,
they could sneak some girls in at least or something.
yeah,
What's
my
up with
mom's biggest thing was like, as long as
No,
she
we
just,
couldn't
you know,
have.
Yeah, it was
it?
like,
No, we couldn't. No.
How
not
would
in
that
house.
happen?
I don't know. We would have got caught, but it would have been funny. Not for us, not you.
What's a
It would've been
girl? Yeah.
Yeah, that was another problem. Yeah, it was like
That was
yeah,
another
so
little
scary.
challenge. Little challenge for But,
that is we back then we definitely were lacking. But yeah,
what are you talking about? Nathan was the man. Leisure suit and all.
No. No. Scary.
Can we go into a bar? I want to meet some girls.
Yeah.
I was casting a lot of magic missiles in the darkness.
I had to scrape them magic missiles off my walls in the morning. It was real bad.
Well, Malcolm, I'm sure you are so glad that you've come back.
I am.
I saved that to the end.
I don't have the words.
There are no words. Just be quiet. Shh.
Yeah, I
Just
do.
let
It's
it-
called-
just
it's
let
called
it happen.
sorrow.
importantly,
But,
when is Tim going to get some sneaky camera time in the background?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am actually upstairs in our gaming room.
Oh, yeah. It's a nice gaming room, too.
So he's downstairs in the bedroom, I believe now, watching TV because I tried
That would
to
be a
go
good
stuff,
studio, Malcolm, but you're in Tennessee, so. I'm just saying, he has
just
a
gonna
nice
show up
gaming
one
room.
day, just
Right.
barge in.
We're going to show up for everything.
We can make that work. But yeah, I mean, he's at some point in the future he plans on swinging through here and just sort of saying hello.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
But yeah, it's a work in progress.
He can
After-
also mail us individually desserts.
Pies.
Yeah, pies.
Pies.
Yeah, send us pies.
Malcolm, I made 15 pies. Can you send these out to your friends?
Oh God.
Does he have some sort
Yeah.
of pie of the month subscription service? Because I'll sign up.
No, they never get out of the house is a problem.
I was disappointed in the lack of pies at Geek Weekend.
Well, I think it's literally because I decided I wasn't taking a cooler. He was like, "Well, okay, I'll just let you go. I'm not saying anything." Then I'm like, "Okay."
You know what's funny? Our guests don't know Malcolm's the only person that living with a permanent tapeworm. That's how he's still alive. 'Cause if not, he'd be dead from pies.
It is slacked off during the pandemic, but yes.
Sean, thank you for
it's a
reminding me. I have to
showstopper.
take mine out for.
Get a piece of bacon and put it on your tongue. That's how you do it.
But
Do we
I
have a
wish-
second? I got to totally. Oh, finish your thought, Malcolm. So good.
no, please. I was just gonna go on. What you said? You think yes?
No, this is like just a total geek talk. And I'm just wondering. This is for everybody. It's like with the popularity, seemingly. Why? So I guess the first question for the group is, and Malcolm, I'd like for you to kick it off.
As you wish.
Do we feel like we're at a pinnacle now, or do we still feel like it was in the 80s, 90s as far as gaming?
Well, that's your old person talking right there.
Because
Yeah, it is. You're
I feel like I just remember walking by complete strategists and having fond memories, right? And other, popular gaming stores. But I feel now it's full on, like across the board. I feel like maybe it's because of the social media that I'm just getting this impression, or do you feel like it actually has expanded and crossed so many barriers where it really was just knuckle draggers, back in the day, where I feel like it's really crossed a lot of different groups that it didn't before. What do you guys think about that?
Okay. I would say, well, I am trepidatious to say that is it at its peak? I would now as compared to in the past. Yes, it definitely is reaching a lot more people and has crossed over to a lot more different sort of genres and beings and places. We'd had conventions and we'd have lots of players and so forth, these conventions and so forth. It does not compare to the numbers we're seeing now. As someone who plays a role-playing game, can't get on your phone or any media or something without being bombarded with a number of different ways of like either accessories for a role-playing game or something like that for a role-playing game. Because you looked once or twice, you are now I get 50 different people with miniatures and manufacturing of dice. And the thing is, there used to be only one place. Like, I can go down, you had your gaming store and they were made by the same manufacturer. Everyone used that same dice. There was no variants. It was just Chessex and that was it,
Ral Partha miniatures.
Yeah,
Ral Partha miniatures. And there were things like literally now it's everywhere. And there's so many different crossovers with different celebrities or whatever, if you want to call them, playing the game and being recognized as players of the game. And it's very weird when people are saying, I'm trying to find a D&D group because I hear they have a D&D group. And it's like, it's almost like 50s part cheesy or bridge. Get your bridge group. Oh, we have our D&D group. And it's like, it varies between, the age range is much broader than it was before, ever. And because we do have an access media-wide, you can, watch podcasts, you can hear games, you can read comic books, you can get stories, you have novels, you have so many different ways you can absorb just the role-playing, just for D&D, let alone any other role-playing system at all out there. There are now, in popular media, for the last 10 years, people turning to fantasy settings to tell stories. And that means that basically, it can be, your high fantasy, low fantasy, or even just alternate history, all the, and science fiction and science fantasy, all these things are now becoming an idea of where we can actually tell a story in this medium. And people say, well, I want to have that adventure. And I can actually do it too. And it's kind of something when you're sitting at the water cooler, or at least you probably won't now because of the pandemic, but before the pandemic, people talking about a game or getting together and people having no clue what they were talking about and feeling left out, As that, and then, so it's definitely crossing different lines. And it's a lot more inclusive too. I think about all the years that I played, several decades of role playing.
Because you're old, right? You're fucking old, right?
Because yes, the AARPG really applies. Is who was in that? Who were the people that I saw playing? Who did I see in the books? Who was I playing with? What was so? I just thought it was, it was just the way it was. Well, no, they weren't nearly as hot as Sean was at the time.
At the time.
At the time.
Yes, they say that.
Yeah.
It's important. It's true.
But
no lights. Yeah.
But it was just like
shut up.
It was like there was a very what you looked around and what you saw was pretty. It was pretty. It was pretty much very similar. It was a lot of white guys. A lot of straight white guys, and that's what you saw.
What do you mean?
and and occasionally, you have, a person of color, and you almost never found a woman in that space.
No, you're right.
I know.
Right.
And,
Believe me, I know.
And there was a lot of, and the thing is, there was a lot of reasons for that. I mean, it wasn't, I'll be perfectly honest, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a welcoming space for a lot of players.
I agree.
Yeah.
Malcolm,
Because
also,
a lot of male players felt intimidated by having a woman in the room, and so it's better just to sort of just steer her away than have her included. Other times you had other times we also had experiences where the only time we had a female player in our game was like she was the significant other of a player, and our interest was only being there for that person, and it was like so that also sort of made us dismissive of, oh, she's just here not to really play. But that's all changed now. We have games which are entirely just women.
Here.
And
Malcolm. But I also think that you're not saying you're wrong, but I think it's a little deeper than that, because I do believe I made a comment when I did my interview, like, you didn't walk up to a girl and say, I have a 5th level paladin, and they fucking want to jump on you.
Yeah,
it wasn't the coolest thing. And I think maybe socially for
women,
society, women,
that's
most
weird,
women,
Sean, because
that's
how I would get laid all the time. That's exactly what I would say. Is
yes,
I'm
in
a
your
5th level
dreams.
paladin. Yeah,
yeah, but I think also it was like there probably were some women that were interested, but they just were like, this is not what we do.
Right.
This is not what normal people do.
This is not what normal people do. Mm-hmm.
And not, but actually most of the people who played were actually normal people. They weren't just, I was no computer geek. I was fucking a guy in the Marines and worked at a grocery store and liked driving hot rods and listening to heavy metal music.
Crazy.
You were an artist, and you were real good at what you did. Nathan was a geek. But the rest of us,
But
I wasn't a computer geek yet, though.
Not yet. But we knew, Nathan. We could tell.
But I think that a lot of people, that's the thing is, like, there was also a persona that was projected on anybody role playing.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yes.
And a lot of time it fit.
It's weird, but you're right,
a lot of times
Malcolm.
it fit,
You're right.
but the thing is that became a deterrent. And the thing is, I think now people look around and say, "Oh, well, this
it's amazing.
This superstar is playing this game, and he's amazingly hot and everything else. Why am I not playing this game?" And it's like,
you look at
and the
Roll20.
truth, it was like that guy was playing the game when he wasn't so hot, but you guys didn't care.
You look at the Dimension 20, Roll20, and it's diverse, but we're just a bunch of old friends. So it's, I don't know if some 20-something would like to jump in with us, because we're probably bore the shit out of them.
So, Malcolm, can I interrupt you for a second? Because you brought up something very interesting, and that is the non-welcoming aspect, because you had this like cycle. Nobody wanted, geek culture found each other playing this, and then also you had this sort of weird thing where it would be, you wind up shunning the people who wanted to get included, women, for example, because you didn't know how to relate to, like you're saying, and what Sean is saying at the same time, where it became its own self-fulfilling prophecy, which is like, we don't want you here, and because of that, you don't want to be here, and it took a long time to bridge the gap, and even now, you have this weird thing where you have people who have been playing for a while, where they're shunning newbies, whether they're
whatever
people who were the other, right? I earned this spot because I'm an old cock son of a bitch. It's just like, that's great, dude. Well, you can live, you can die, then die alone. But if you want this to continue,
the gatekeeping is a thing, and that's what I'm saying. It's like it ended up being a self-fulfilling prophecy back then, and I think that. Also, it also was how the industry decided to, who they were actually making the games for, and how it was set up. So you sort of, you're kind of like, when you've been pushed out of every other group and you find a group that's your own, you're kind of reluctant to let somebody else in that group who doesn't really fit them, because this is ours. You can go somewhere else. It becomes a thing. But that's changing. But I think now we have a lot more. The game, first of all, the system is far more approachable. The game is a lot more approachable. The idea of it, the actual persona of being a person who plays role-playing games, is vastly different than it was in 1990.
Yeah, I would even say I'll tell you, it's only been the last maybe 2.5 years that I would openly talk about in my workplace. In fact, it's actually really only been the last 2 years where I would actively talk about this topic at my workplace out of concern of being labeled. Even with its rise in popularity, it has just been, again, the last couple of years where I would admit to role playing, because there's still stigma, right? There's because especially if you're around older people, right? And it's there's still like this thing, and
monsters and mazes.
Yeah. So it is interesting, and I do think at least, again, and I know I'm kind of on the outside for some of this stuff, but a comment you made earlier, like I do think that a lot of the publishers are really trying, just like we're seeing in a lot of our movies now and stuff like that. We're trying to represent these stories to greater numbers of people, and one of the best ways to do it is to represent them in the material, right? And so I think, I've read some of these horror stories too, but I'm also seeing like Nathan's got that friend Mitch, right? Like they've got like, there's lots more diversity and inclusiveness, and the way that people, the safe spaces are becoming safer. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there, and I'm hopeful. I guess I'm maybe an eternal optimist, right? That part of making this a more appealing to a larger audience is making those people feel like they're part of it, right? They're not just,
And
looking at the time, you might.
Oh yeah, it is getting late.
Nathan, I'm worried about you.
I just want to thanks. It's great. So like to Matt's point, with publishers, creators, people creating these games or writing, doing art for the games, it's definitely a lot more diverse, a lot more welcoming. But even back when we played, like coming out of high school, really being very, very insular, and then going to college and meeting a lot of people, like, I didn't have any gay friends in high school. I didn't understand what gay was. I just didn't get it. I just I kind of, so like having meeting people that were really outside of my wheelhouse really made me see like a larger world, and gaming is what that did for me. So I had gay friends playing. I had we had a couple women at the table too, and that really that whole experience changed like my whole outlook. Like I just understood the world better, and part of that is the whole college experience too. Is learning, but really
experimenting.
Experience. But the vehicle was gaming, and that really and seeing how it's even a lot more open, more inclusive. Like back then when we were playing, you look at the first edition Palladium rule. This book here, which I still have, like basically, if you got an insanity, one of the insanities is could turn you gay. So that was like, you get like that's
I never knew that.
Standards, that's horrifying. That's like completely horrifying and terrible.
It turn you happy?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, apparently.
Yes.
Good news is there's clerics that can help you pray out that condition.
Yeah.
Oh
So
my
with-
God.
We can't have you be fabulous now.
Yeah,
Come sit
it
here
was-
and be whipped.
That was and it was
under sexual deviation, under neurosis. I mean, it's like I picked this up for nostalgia like a few months ago, and I was like, oh, holy shit, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, it's interesting what you see when people wrote and how things are written, and publishers have got to help them gotten better, but
yeah, a little bit,
a little bit, and and to think that just like was it? I guess it came out last year or the year before last. I was there's I remember being really excited, even though I wasn't really running in the Theros game world, was like, there was this gay couple, which is one of the heroes of this world, and I was like, there they are. And they even have a special ability. Well, anybody did, because basically it was just like domestic partnership. So if you had the same roommate for 5 years who ate your Cheetos, you could get this, companion power too. But anyway, it was nice, And I was like, hey. And I was just like, it was just the idea that, it wasn't necessarily for me. I mean, I enjoyed seeing it, but I kept thinking about if I had seen that in 83.
Right.
How would I have seen myself? If I'd seen these books much earlier, how would I have seen myself? I would know without a doubt that I could be in this space. I would know that things about, my experience could be added to a game and be valid, and
the opposite was more true, which was seeing things perceived possibly in a negative light, where it's just like, oh, well, now I'm definitely not going to reveal that I'm Italian because, everybody hates Italians, just to whatever. But
true.
But it turns out this might be an edit point for the podcast, but turns out first editions of a lot of books, some of them are about 2,000 years old, and were written. They have a lot of crazy things in them as well. So,
what are you talking about? Get more specific.
Some of the edits actually made it get worse, though.
Yes, depending on which pope you're
Not really sure what you're talking about there.
Yeah, interpretation apparently has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, the Kama Sutra was better 100 years ago.
Yeah. I just
Gilgamesh is completely different.
I can't even bend like that anymore.
I only like the Irish edition of the Kama Sutra. So
it's all potatoes.
It's all potatoes.
Potato ambassador to potato emperor.
Except for page 46, which is just a bottle of whiskey.
And a shot glass.
Malcolm, I know it's getting late for everybody, but I know it's a very personal thing that we're all talking about, but I feel like it's extraordinarily relevant. But thanks for even sharing. That's great.
Yeah,
I don't know if I said that right, but yeah, you know what I mean.
We get it.
Yeah. I got it.
I mean, I traded these three members of this party just to have Malcolm on more often.
Yeah. We should just sit and bullshit like this without.
He's not talking about me, guys. I'm just letting you know.
Always the Italian.
But,
thanks. I appreciate that.
He's not worried about me. I'll be drunk in a corner gibbering.
Well, I think we probably do have to wrap it up. We could probably do this till wee in the morning hours, or until we start all
2
falling
hours
asleep because we're old.
And putting on Malcolm's mom's clothes.
That's right.
Which
Matt seems to be strangely fascinated about.
Wrapped in the cat.
Matt seems to keep bringing that up every few months about the clothes.
But yeah,
yeah, for you.
I'll
Is there any more questions?
No, we're wrapping up. Say goodnight, Malcolm.
Okay.
Good
night, everyone. It's been a pleasure.
Peace, love, and bubblegum.
That'll be Nathan.
Yeah,
Nathan, do you have a wrap
I'm
up?
wrapping up.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got to wrap up.
Yeah, I was wrapping up right now. You just interrupted.
Shut the fuck up. The part of Sean tonight's being played
Shall
by
I go
Tony
again?
Kupo.
Should I say goodnight again?
Yes, say goodnight again, sir,
No, I think
please.
we'll just keep the way it is, and
Okay.
People.
The chaos.
Anybody who's listened to us before know we don't know how to wrap up a game or anything.
No.
We end with a whimper every time.
Yeah, but I this is awesome. Anytime I get to spend with you, guys, is great. I hope people find some value in this interview. I loved it.
I just gotta say one thing, Nathan. This is really important.
No, Sean.
It's really important. It's really important.
Just mute
We
it.
have, yes, we have to.
Hit the button. Hit the button.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
right,
it's
go
nothing
ahead, Sean.
bad.
Sorry.
It's just about, we all got to talk about on Discord how great this was, so Tyrion thinks he missed something awesome. And it
Tyrion's
was
going to
great.
be furious.
That's all. We were all on it, but Tyrion.
He's
That's
gonna
all
be
I have to
pissed
say.
'cause
Thank
Tyrion
you.
even asked.
He asked to be.
Yes, he did.
Can I interview?
He asked, and we were all on it. That's what I'm talking about.
Microphone with him.
Thank you.
Nathan,
Thank you.
Nathan,
Yeah.
Nathan,
So I did have to, Matt. So fuck you.
If he
So
if he really wants to, we can do a mock interview for him. Like he's like, oh yeah, the mics are on.
That's a great idea. We should do that.
Is there a way?
Terrible people.
Is there a way to bring the stream of this and then like add him so he thinks he's on with us live?
No, because he might ask me specific questions about the game.
No,
be
but
hard.
that'd be even funny though, because you just
Yeah.
completely blow him off.
Right. He's like, "Is my mic not working?"
Can you guys hear me?
How-
Can't you hear me? My stuff's not. Oh my god!
What if we just have Tier do a review, like we just put him in a corner,
Or-
he's giving a review.
Even better, at the first 5 minutes of the episode, we'll just all of us be going, Tier, we can't hear you. Just check your mic.
All right, guys.
So,
Well,
but if he,
I'm
I'm up for doing a whole other interview with him if you want. I wouldn't mind that either. I've got time tomorrow.
You'll be fine. But thanks
That's a no.
everybody. Have a good night. And
Have a good night.
and,
Thank
yeah.
you so much, guys.
See y'all later.
Good night, everybody.
Night.